From Chicago's CAN TV, a look at the week's events is reported in the newspapers, in the blogs and online, and on radio and TV. This is Chicago Newsroom.
Hi again, welcome to Chicago Newsroom. I'm Ken Davis. Another show, and this is the show, of course, where we kind of sit around the table, kick around the things that have happened in the last week, and a couple of things happened this last week, so we will definitely have some stuff to talk about. We have an election that the Republicans would tell you has redefined everything in America, a clear voice from America about how they want things changed. It seems to me that that voice is a little more mixed than that. It's a little more nuanced than that, and we'll kick that story around today. And of course, we'll always have a little bit of time to talk about our favorite sport, which is Chicago politics and what happened, how it's going to affect this coming up mayor's race, all the usual things that we talk about here on Chicago Newsroom. And here today, to help us do that, first of all, Octavio Lopez joining us today from OI, and I'm really happy to have you here. Metropolitan Editor, so this is somebody who really kind of hope is going to be able to tell us a little bit about what happened in Chicago and how that happened. So we're really happy to have you with us today. And here today, as a regular, he officially becomes a regular today since it's his second time on the show. Monroe Anderson is with us. Monroe is a Chicago writer and a journalist and an observer of the political scene of all kinds. Has worked on both sides of the coin, in government and in media. So a guy who I think we can pretty much call a historian almost. You're almost getting that status, right?
Right. I've been around long enough.
Right. And also for the first time today, Carol Felsenthal joining us from Chicago Magazine, blogger, the Felsenthal Files, and I would have to say an astute writer about things that are going on right now. So a really good time to have you on the show. I just heard on the way in, this probably will be an old quote by the time you see this program, but it's fresh to us, that would have been Governor Brady was speaking to the reporters this morning and said that he just wished that Cook County would secede from Illinois, that it would make things so much better because all those people up in Cook County do is just spend all of our money and stuff like that. Now, of course, I don't have the quote exactly right.
And not vote for him.
And not vote for him. Right.
He would have won without Cook County.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I can find it right now, but the Tribune had this really cute map. Yeah, look at this. This is a map of who won where, and it's a completely Brady state except for this one little blue dot up there.
So, right. So it makes sense. Yeah, right. If we could just get rid of that one little county, I could be in charge.
Yeah.
You know, there was enough of a turnout in the city. 52%, and Quinn's people were saying all night that if it was 50% or higher, Quinn would be okay. And you know, it's just the best thing, the luckiest thing that happened to Pat Quinn was that Brady won the primary and Kirk Dillard didn't get the chance to run, because Kirk Dillard would have wiped the floor with Pat Quinn. He was a moderate, and that's why Jim Edgar supported him. And Brady was a bad candidate, a weak candidate. I think it's analogous to what happened in the Senate race.
Well, over on conservative radio, they're saying that the best thing that happened to Pat Quinn was Scott Lee Cohen, that Scott Lee Cohen polled much more heavily than anybody thought, and that they believe he took the votes away from the conservative. I don't know if that's true or not. So, Octavio, let's ask you something. This is a really significant race, or this has been a significant election for the Hispanic community in Chicago, especially when you look at it as like how it sets up for the next election that we're talking about. What role did and I just feel like such a jerk when I use the term Hispanic community. There is no such thing, but you know, we like to sort of try to put people in buckets like this. What role did that community play in this election? Can you summarize that for me?
Yes. Well, the Latino vote, it's always important. It's growing year after year. Latinos are more involved in politics because they are pretty worried about 5 topics, I will say: jobs, education, housing, health, and immigration. Obviously, immigration for the Latino community, it's a big role. it was not as important as the other 4 topics, but it's always playing a role in there. Obviously, the Latino community is kind of disappointed with the Mark Kirk, who won the Senate seat, and they see him as an enemy for the immigration reform.
Well, that would have to be a pretty significant thing.
It is, and he's been openly saying that he will not support DREAM Act, which will provide legal status for undocumented students, and he would not support the immigration reform either, unless there's a better program to secure the border.
Yeah, I think Kirk's going to be the anti-Obama senator because he's already announced that his first vote is going to be against Obama's tax plan. And so he's going to play that. Although he has appeared to be a moderate Republican, but I think the teabag movement has scared all the moderates to the right.
Yeah, but I don't think he's going to. I think Kirk is a moderate in his head and in his soul. And if you look at his record as congressman from the 10th district and why he was so popular there. By the way, the way that district race turned out, I expected Seals to win that, not Dole.
Right.
But I think that Mark Kirk did what candidates do all the time. He moved to the right. I had this series of interviews with his ex-wife, who's quite liberal, big Obama supporter, and they're still very friendly. In fact, I got an email from her this morning saying she was having breakfast with him, but they're now divorced. And she was, reason she talked to me and she was so angry in Mark Kirk was that he was changing his positions. For example, don't ask, don't tell. He's a supporter of don't ask, don't tell. And I think that in his heart, he's a supporter of the DREAM Act too. So he's going to have to,
but already he's announcing that he's going to do these anti-Obama votes.
Because
it's going to be pretty hard for him to reverse on that if he's already said it.
And because he was focused on this lame duck session, which is going to be extremely critical.
Right.
And it was one of the planks that Mark Kirk had running. You send Alexei Janulius to the lame duck, and he's going to be a messenger boy for Obama. You send me, I'm going to vote independent. But at least in the Senate, there's a 6-year term. So Mark Kirk might become the moderate that I believe he is. He is a national security hawk.
Yeah.
But I do believe that he's more moderate than he appears to be right now.
Yeah, but okay, but right. But
we'll visit again on
exactly.
this.
My theory.
To be continued.
My fear is that because of the extreme right shift that the Republicans are making in general, that he's going to go with the flow on that. Although in his heart he may be a moderate, in his head he's going to choose to be an extreme rightist. Like I do
want to get back, Octavio, to this question about this. As I say, this kind of Latino vote, if there is such a thing, because it would seem like it would be so critical at a time like this. And I've been looking around, and I haven't yet gotten a sense of what it did on Tuesday. Was it pretty active?
It was kind of active. We were surprised, like some neighborhoods, like a Little Village or Humboldt Park, they were having a kind of high participation early in the morning, but everything went down in the afternoon. So what we see is what we have seen all over the city. It's like a pretty normal vote for midterm elections. 50% of them just went to vote, and nothing really big happened. So even though they are getting more involved in the elections and in some other issues, they are not really moving that fast when it's time to vote. That's something that it has to change.
So, I mean, it's fair to say then that this could have been, this vote could have been more engaged and could have been higher, and it might have had some effect, although maybe not. It's mostly city and nearby city. I mean, I guess that so it probably wouldn't have really affected the outcome very much.
Exactly. Yeah. I will share your vision there. Something like that was what happened.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned before, we have to move forward and be a lot more active in what we're looking forward.
Yeah. Okay. So, let's just play this ridiculous game and do the same thing. I'm going to throw it to you, Monroe. What about the African American vote in this thing? And my understanding is that it was pretty much lower than last time, than 2 years ago, right?
No, well, lower than 2 years ago because you had Obama.
Everything's
but
lower.
It was not. It was higher than it was at the last midterm.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
So good, because
Yeah.
I haven't been able to really sift through and find these numbers and try to
Right.
get any kind of a focus on
Right.
this. So I mean, I got to say, I was a bit surprised when I started reading all the stories about the Brady and Quinn thing, where they're starting to sort through all these numbers and find that the city of Chicago was like, what, almost like 80-20 in places for Quinn, right? So that
Yeah.
surprised me that the vote was that high, which would perhaps indicate that some of the minority votes were higher, maybe. I don't know.
Exactly. No, some for whatever reasons, they came back. Quinn got a lot of votes in the city. I mean, and it's different reasons. I'm not trying to make it mysterious. You know, it varied. You had some other elections, for example, going on. The Cook County Board President. Yeah.
Certainly, right.
Yeah.
Right.
So you had other things impacting it. But what's interesting is that you have Quinn apparently winning. He's right now 19,000 votes ahead as we speak.
Now,
yeah,
right.
And Alexei not. And the only thing I can figure out reading the numbers is that Kirk got more support in the collar counties than Brady did. Brady was just too far right for the suburban area.
The quality of the you look at the quality of a Mark Kirk, a really super ultra intelligent person who is swimming in knowledge and information and reports, and as a congressman. I mean, what I've learned about Mark Kirk, and I hope to write more about him in detail, because I think people don't really know what this guy who, London School of Economics, Cornell University, Georgetown Law School, officer in the Naval Reserve, is in the Situation Room in the White House as the intelligence chief, not the chief of the whole Situation Room as he claimed. Right. This guy has a resume to die for, to kill for, and why he feels he has to embellish it. But when he debated at WLS TV, the debate was just you're a mob banker, Giannoulias to him, you're a serial liar, lobster, blah, 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 back and forth. A terribly unenlightening debate. But afterwards, the candidates appeared at a meeting with the press separately, and Giannoulias came in. He had nothing to say. He's inarticulate. He's, really just an immature guy who maybe 20 years from now will be ready, but he wasn't ready, which Barack Obama warned him about, if you remember. Don't run yet.
He told him not to run.
Get married, have some children, live a little bit. And then Giannoulias leaves, and when his handler said one last question, nobody had a question to ask him. He was so uninspiring and flat.
Well, he lost the Today Show debate as well.
Right.
Yeah.
The Meet the Press.
Meet the Press.
I thought he definitely did.
Right.
But then Kirk comes in, and he went on for about, I know because I taped it and I looked at, for 19 minutes, way longer than he was supposed to, and he was really engaging. And one of the things is he finally talked about immigration. He was ducking and weaving during the campaign, but he said, we have to do the borders, and no, I won't support the DREAM Act. At least he gave an answer to the press that were gathered there. So you look at somebody like Kirk, and I know a lot of people who voted for Kirk, smart people, because they thought that Giannoulias was just too much of an empty vessel. But Brady is a candidate you don't get any sense
Brady
of
didn't get that benefit.
Yeah.
So we really did have a situation where, and sometimes we tend not to give the electorate a lot of credit, but in this case there seems to have been some thinking going on that, I can support this conservative guy, but I can't support this conservative guy.
Yeah.
They were paying more attention to it. I mean, we have seen a lot of ads on TV and paper, everywhere, on radio, and people were paying attention not only to what they were saying against each other, but what they they were offering to the people. So I think it was a pretty intelligent vote this time.
Was anybody here surprised at the strong showing of Barrios over Claypool?
Yes.
Did that surprise anybody?
Yes, I think it's because I spend too much time in Lincoln Park. and you know, one thing that I noticed is that
you were surprised too?
Yeah, and I spent too much time at Lincoln Park. Right, exactly.
The only place I saw Claypool signs was, you know, I saw maybe 3 of them. I have a dog, and I'm out walking around all the time, and I think I saw 3 Claypool signs. I didn't see any Barrios signs. Of course, nobody would support Barrios.
Well, you don't need it. Barrios don't need no signs.
Yeah, but when you think of, if you take a look at the editorials at the Sun-Times and the Tribune and columnists like Carol Marin, they were, you know, pleading with the public, you know, come out, and so it just shows you how irrelevant those editorials
But, you know,
are.
we had this conversation around this very table last week talking about the fact that, you know, Barrios doesn't have to make a big deal out of it. It's just sort of like, oh, by the way, I will be the first Latino assessor ever, so you might want to consider that. You know, that must have played, right? That played well?
I don't think so. I mean, nobody was really recalling the fact that he would be the first Latino who ran the assessor office. I don't recall that. I mean, we had a chance to interview him, and that's even a role that he wasn't playing. I mean, he was focusing on, you know, property taxes and assessment and stuff like that. But he didn't really play the Latino.
And he's a Democrat.
And he's a Democrat.
Right.
Well,
that makes a big difference.
Tony Preckwinkle mentioned that when I interviewed her, and I asked her, you know, I naive me, I thought she would say, oh, I'm a reformer, so I'm going to support Claypool. And instead she said, no, I'm a Democrat, I'm supporting Barrios. And I asked why, and she used the, you know, he brings diversity to the assessor's job for the first time. That was a common plank among Democrats who, I interviewed Danny Davis the other day, and he said the same thing. Before the election, he said, I'm supporting Barrios because.
Well, I mentioned last week, and must mention again, that you know, I have not been a canned TV host all my professional life. I've done other things, and one of the things I did 4 years ago was I worked with the Claypool campaign. So, you know, there you go. Now you know where I'm coming from on this. But I have to say that I really wasn't terribly surprised that he didn't get much more support. I mean, I think that it was such a divisive race, the one 4 years ago, that really kind of put him into a kind of a racial bag that it's going to be very difficult for him to come back out of. Because it's like the reform part is one thing, but the other part is, you know, where do you fit into the fabric of the city?
Right, exactly. And 4 years ago, I was writing an op-ed page column for the Sunday Sun-Times, and I wrote about that. And
I remember.
Yeah, right. And my position was, is he really a reformer, or does he just play one on TV?
Yeah.
And I made a reference to his bringing standard parking into the fold. And obviously, he was just doing Daley's bidding, but
he was his chief of staff.
Exactly.
Yeah,
but on the other hand, that's not what your average reformer would do.
Right.
Well, it was an invisible race too. Claypool,
it sure was.
How often did you see Claypool out and about at a bus stop or a train stop? And there was, as far as I could tell, there was never any polling.
I don't know.
I never saw any. And
I had no contact with anybody in the campaign, so lest you think
I didn't see any polling, but if there had been some and it showed Claypool at 30%, well, there might have been some sense of urgency.
I saw what Claypool said on the TV shows on election night and thought that it made some sense, that he actually really was victimized by this Republican sweep in a way, because my mind just went blank and I can't think of the lady's name, but the Republican candidate.
Judy Bartopinka?
Well, it doesn't matter, but the point was that she got 18%. So there was a
the Evanston assessor,
the
woman who had been assessor.
There was more of a Republican vote for the assessor than Claypool probably expected. But nevertheless, this kind of begins to paint this larger picture for us of Chicago politics and where we're moving and what's going to happen next and all of that. So I think it's, you know, you can't avoid this kind of template of racial overtone for almost everything that happens, and that is going to be big, I think, in this next race that we're all looking to. So, Carol, you wrote the other day that today's a big day for Rahm Emanuel. He's going to be out in Hollywood with his friends raising money. And I saw this morning a very cute story that Gary Chico is also having a Hollywood fundraiser tonight.
At a restaurant.
Yes, he's going to be at the Hollywood Bar and saying he'd rather be in a Chicago neighborhood.
On North Avenue, on West North Avenue. Right. You know, before Rahm's Hollywood fundraiser, which they're going to be more billionaires in that room than you've ever met or I've ever met. But when Claypool lost, immediately popped into my head, he's going to run for mayor. So yesterday I called I had his press secretary's private cell phone number, and I called him, like, why this guy sounded discouraged. And he said, absolutely not. He's not running for mayor.
Yeah, he's now saying that he may not run for anything ever again.
Yeah, he's probably pretty sad.
Yeah, right,
exactly. I think the thing about Claypool, and I don't know him, I interviewed him, I thought he was a nice guy, but, he's kind of an entitled character, and I think that somebody like that's kind of lost his why didn't they realize my quality? And but Rahm's brother, Ari Emanuel, the famous agent, is throwing this party for him, and it's at the home of a man named Chaim Saban, who's a big friend of Bill and Hillary Clinton's. He was one of Hillary Clinton's biggest supporters. He's worth, I don't know how many millions. He brought to the United States, much to my distress when I was raising my youngest child, my son Daniel, the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. That's where he got his money. And there are 3 other billionaires who I named in the story that I did on this, and I thought it was interesting because this is mayor of Chicago. I think Rahm may be overreaching. On the other hand, he is going to have so much money, and he's got so many people lined behind him.
But California and I mean, it's been proven that you can't necessarily buy an election.
Well, I mean, is there a sort of a Carlo Fiorini factor here? I mean, it's like, you can spend lots and lots of money. Doesn't mean you're going to buy an election.
Right.
Well, it's not his personal wealth.
Right, I understand.
Although he has plenty of that.
But isn't there some of that involved here? I mean, I got to say,
there is.
And this is not a partisan remark, but just as a Chicagoan, there's just something about that just feels a little weird to me. Like you can go out and get millions of dollars.
Right, and we'll see how well it works, but I don't imagine it working. I don't, because I mean, I don't know Rahm personally, but there have been reports that he is personality challenged, and so if he's up against somebody like Gary Chico, for example, who is very smooth, and has lots of personality and warmth, then I think that's going to play. When we get down to the final run, I think that's going to play better with Chicagoans than any amount of money.
It is, and actually Chico is pushing a lot about being local.
Yeah.
Yesterday, John Cass wrote a column about an interview with Chico, and they were talking about that the fact that Rahm Emanuel has been outside Chicago for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And then he was mentioning the fact that they are firing people in the city of Chicago because they live a block away from the city. The same happened with police officers, teachers, municipal employees. So that's something that Chico is going to be playing a lot. That's why he's having his party here tonight.
Right.
And then that's his key issue, I will say.
He just has such a poor record of running, though, Gary Chico.
Yeah, he hasn't done well.
After Daley announced his retirement, shortly thereafter, a week or a few days, he appeared on Chicago Tonight, and he seemed almost to be endorsing Gary Chico. He said, Phil Ponce, I think, asked him whether Mayor Daley would endorse him, or whether he was friends with whether Mayor Daley would endorse Rahm. Are you friends with Rahm? And he said, if there's anybody who I know really well, it's Gary Chico.
Right.
And then Bill Daley, who is totally his older brother's political strategist said the same thing about Chico. But I think it's all feint. I think they are definitely supporting Rahm.
Oh, I
the
think so too.
business community is going to support Rahm. And after the Hollywood fundraiser, he'll be going to some fancy parties on Park Avenue in New York.
And well, even some big community organizations like United Neighborhood Organization, UNO, run by Juan Rangel, well, not that UNO is supporting Rahm Emanuel. Juan Rangel is supporting Rahm Emanuel.
Right.
Obviously, with Juan Rangel comes all the UNO organization.
So, I mean, I'm hearing the same thing from you guys. I'm hearing from everybody else. It's like, I don't have to bother holding the election. It's over. Rahm Emanuel has won the election.
No, that's the air that's out there, but I don't think that's the case.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Is I don't. Again, Rahm has no presence.
Right.
Visibility in the African American community. I've heard that he doesn't have much.
He doesn't have that much in the Latino community because he's been against the immigration reform as well.
Well, yeah.
And he doesn't have much in Lincoln Park, right?
Oh, yes, he does.
He does?
Oh, my gosh, yes.
Yeah, because I've heard I've heard that there are a lot of people who don't like him there. Okay.
But he has a lot of progressive, liberal people who give a lot of money to politics. And in fact, we're the same people who got Claypool in some trouble because Barrios pointed out that he was getting a lot of his contributions from very wealthy, you know.
We are rapidly running out of time here, but I guess I just want to sort of like throw this one out, just get reactions. There are debating issues today about whether Lisa Madigan is or isn't going to get back in again. Let's just go around. Is she or isn't she?
Well, she would be Gary Chico's worst nightmare. When I asked Gary Chico about that, he said, I don't care one way or another. I don't know. I think that the best thing that happened to Rahm Emanuel was when Tom Dart got out.
Right.
So at least I just don't know.
And as part of your prediction that Daley really wants Rahm.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why I think Dart got out. There was a conversation. You know, it seems to me that all the people that would cause Rahm problems are dropping out. You know, I got a stomach ache. I got a headache.
Right.
Oh, I think I'm coming down with the flu. You know, any old excuse, but they're all coming up with some reason to drop out.
Lisa Madigan going to get in?
Good possibility.
You think there's a possibility?
And if she does, that's going to be a real problem for Chico.
Octavio?
Well, I will say that she still has some time to think about it, but I'm pretty sure she's not going to risk the fact that she's been reelected, and I'm pretty sure she's going to try to stay there and to look for the Queen post in 4 years.
Yeah, she's going to. So that's the idea that Quinn will fail.
Okay, yeah,
that he will raise taxes, which is what everybody wants.
Exactly.
Yeah, but let's be real about this. If you have a choice to be the mayor of Chicago or the governor of Illinois, which one are you going to go? Right, exactly. Right.
Says this panel sitting here at Chicago Access Network. Yeah. So. All right, I want to throw out one more thing toward the end here. Well, of course, we need to talk about Huberman, too. What is going on with Huberman? Can we compress the Huberman conversation into 60 seconds? What is the story here?
It sounds like he had an argument with Mayor Daley, and Mayor Daley, he somehow offended Mayor Daley by, certainly he's going to get a job, a very high-paying job in the private sector, and I'm pushing for Michelle Reed to come from DC, and take the job of superintendent here because she hasn't lined up one yet.
But why would anyone take that job when it's only going to be less than a year job?
Daley could say Rahm's going to be the next mayor you work for.
Well, maybe Terry Mazzini is
he could say that, but right.
We're going to have to break it at that point, I'm afraid. But I do want to thank our great panel for being here today on Chicago Newsroom. You have been watching Chicago Newsroom. It's a community service of CAN TV. And, of course, you can find us here on cable anytime. But you can also see this and other programs online at cantv.blip.tv. Check us out there or subscribe online at iTunes. There's all kinds of ways to watch us. I'm Ken Davis, thanking you for joining us. We'll see you next time.